I wasn't supposed to be there. My orders were clear: recon, avoid contact, report movement. But then I heard it, a voice barely louder than the rustling leaves, trembling with pain and desperation. And when I found her, tangled in a trap that shimmered like a spider's web spun from starlight, everything changed. She wasn't human, not fully. Her skin shimmered with a faint lavender glow, and delicate vines wove through her body like nature itself had claimed her. Half naked, bleeding and terrified, she wasn't just caught. She was abandoned, left to die. I knew I should have walked away, but I didn't. I cut her free. I carried her. I protected her. Now she won't leave my side. Her name is Aelira, an alien with a secret buried deep within her veins. The moment I saved her, she bound herself to me in ways no human mind could understand. They'll come for her. They'll come for both of us. But there's something about the way she looks at me, like I'm her only hope, and maybe something more. This is the story of how I found her and how she might just save me in return. I was never a hero. Most soldiers would like to believe they fight for something bigger than themselves: justice, freedom, some noble cause. But in the outer zones, where Earth's and alien territories blur into jungle and mist, we don't fight for meaning. We fight to survive. That day started like any other: damp boots, dirty air, and the constant thrum of tension in my chest. I was patrolling a restricted jungle sector on the edge of Zone 9, where alien interference had been reported. Recon only, no engagement. Then I heard it. At first I thought it was the wind, but it came again, soft, broken, almost like a whisper choked by pain. Help! The sound pulled me off my path. I moved quietly through the underbrush, rifle ready, eyes scanning, and then I saw her. She hung suspended midair, tangled in a web of glowing alien filaments, part vine, part energy, pulsing faintly with each of her shallow breaths. The trap was designed to drain life. Strand prey until the hunters returned. Her skin shimmered like moonlight on water, soft lavender with faint golden patterns running along her arms and thighs. She wore nothing but strands of nature: leaves, petals, fragments of woven bark, barely enough to cover her, and yet she looked like something out of a dream, or a nightmare I didn't want to wake up from. Her eyes opened slowly. Not human, they glowed, violet, wide with fear. But they locked onto me like she recognized something inside me, something that told her she was safe. She didn't speak a word as I approached, carefully slicing through the energy vines with my blade. The trap hissed and recoiled as I freed her, and she collapsed into my arms, trembling, skin warm against my gear. That was the moment it all changed. I wasn't just a soldier anymore. I was something else: her protector, her shield, maybe even her fate. I carried her through the dense forest until we found shelter behind a waterfall cavern. The water masked our heat signatures. It was the only place I could think of to hide us from whatever laid that trap. She slept for hours, curled beside me like a creature from another world, and when she woke, her first instinct wasn't to run. It was to reach for my hand. She traced my fingers like she was learning what I was. She whispered a single word: Lucas. How did she know my name? I should have called it in, reported contact, followed orders, but I didn't. Not when she looked at me like that. Like I was more than just a soldier in a war. Like I was the first thing she ever trusted. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I felt something stronger than fear or duty. I felt connection. That night, I kept watch while she lay beside me, glowing softly in her sleep. And I realized the war I thought I was fighting had only just begun. Because the real battle wasn't against aliens. It was about protecting the one I couldn't let go. Her name is Aelira, and she's not leaving my side. The jungle didn't breathe. It pulsed. Everything in Zone 9 felt alive in a way that wasn't natural. Trees whispered secrets through tangled vines. The air shimmered like heat waves, even in shade. Creatures with too many eyes watched from the canopy, and sometimes the ground itself seemed to shift beneath your boots. Lucas had been deployed in every kind of terrain: deserts, ruins, frozen plains. But nothing unnerved him like this place. It wasn't just alien, it was listening. Still, he moved like a ghost, quiet, methodical, alert, rifle locked tight to his shoulder, eyes sweeping, every step calculated. Then he heard it again, a sound, not made by wind or beast. It was soft, weak, and human enough to stop him cold. Help. It came from deeper inside the brush, where the foliage was so dense even light struggled to pass through. Lucas crouched, pressed a hand to the soil, and closed his eyes. There it was again. Not a cry, a plea. Breaking protocol wasn't new for him, but following this sound felt different. It wasn't a mission anymore, it was a pull, deep in his gut. He pushed through the green wall, the vines clawing at his armor like fingers. Then he saw her suspended in midair, tangled in a snare of glowing tendrils, an alien trap, engineered to immobilize and drain. Bioplasmic threads curled around her legs and arms like a spider wrapping its prey, pulsing in rhythm with her weakening heartbeat. She wasn't just caught, she was dying, and she was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Her skin shimmered with soft, violet undertones, speckled with golden veins that pulsed faintly under her flesh. Her long, tangled hair spilled around her like a silken halo, dusted in particles of bioluminescent spores. Leaves clung to her body like armor made by the forest. or what little was left of it. She looked like a dream, or a ghost, but her eyes were very much alive, wide, terrified. Glowing faintly with a deep lavender hue, they locked onto Lucas like he wasn't a stranger, but a lifeline. He raised his weapon instinctively, unsure if this was bait, a setup, designed to test his weakness. Alien traps came in many forms. Some looked like children, some cried like lovers, but she didn't cry anymore. She watched him, chest rising slowly, too slowly. Something deep in Lucas snapped, without fully understanding why. He slung the rifle to his back and moved in, fast, precise. The snare was old tech, organic, reactive, designed to paralyze, not kill quickly. That gave him time. He drew his blade, a short combat knife, and began slicing at the thickest strands. The trap hissed, sensing the intrusion, tightening its grip on the woman's legs. She gasped her first real sound, and Lucas cursed under his breath. "Easy," he muttered. "You're gonna be okay." He kept working. The vines slashed at his arms, leaving light welts as they recoiled, but one by one the cords gave way until she collapsed like a rag doll right into his arms. She was warmer than expected. Her skin glowed where it touched his, like energy passed between them. For a second, the entire jungle seemed to go still. The wind died. The buzzing quieted. Even the trees stopped whispering. Lucas looked down at her face. She was watching him, not panicking, not crying, just watching. Her lips parted. "You came," she whispered, voice hoarse and melodic, almost a song. Lucas blinked. "You speak English." She didn't respond, just closed her eyes, like even that much had drained her. He didn't wait, scooping her up. He moved back through the dense forest, heart pounding. He could feel her breathing, slow but steady. Her arms, though weak, curled slightly around his chest. Whatever this woman, this being was, she wasn't just a random alien left behind. Someone wanted her gone. Someone wanted her to vanish quietly. Not today. He reached the edge of a waterfall he'd mapped earlier, where the terrain dipped sharply into a natural cove. Water thundered into a deep pool below, the mist masking heat signatures, the cave behind it providing perfect cover. Lucas stepped through the cascade, cradling her against him, and set her down gently on a patch of moss. He removed his jacket and placed it over her barely covered body, trying not to stare at the intricate markings that ran down her thighs like living tattoos. She shivered once, then curled into herself. Lucas sat beside her, rifle-ready eyes on the cave's entrance. "Who are you?" he whispered. No answer, just silence and her slow, steady breathing. And that's when he knew. This wasn't just a rescue, it was the beginning of something he didn't understand. Something he couldn't walk away from. Not now. Not with her still breathing beside him. The waterfall roared behind them, muffling the sounds of the world outside. For a few hours, the cave felt like another planet, far away from orders, war, and everything that made sense. The only thing that mattered was the woman lying silently beside Lucas, wrapped in his military jacket, her glowing skin barely concealed beneath the fabric. Lucas leaned against the stone wall, rifle across his lap, eyes fixed on her as she slept. Her breathing had evened out, but the occasional twitch in her legs or hand told him her body was still fighting the trauma. The vines that had clung to her like living barbed wire had left glowing marks on her skin. Not cuts exactly, but something deeper, like they had tried to imprint on her. He had questions. Too many. Why was she there? Why was she alone? Who would set a trap for someone like her? More importantly, why had he risked everything for her? He didn't save strangers. That wasn't his job, but something about her, the way she looked at him, like he was more than just a soldier, had broken through the walls he didn't even know were still standing. A soft groan pulled him out of thought. She stood, blinking slowly, then sat up halfway, disoriented. "You're safe," Lucas said quietly, shifting closer. "You're in a cave. The trap's gone. You're okay." She looked at him, dazed, then down at herself. Her fingers brushed the inside of her arm, tracing the glowing vine marks. "They tried to bind me," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Lucas frowned. "Who?" "The hunters." She didn't answer. Her attention was on his arm now, blood seeping through his sleeve. The vines had caught him too, but he hadn't noticed in the adrenaline. Now the wound stung, and the fabric stuck to his skin. Before he could react, she moved. Her hand gently took his arm. He froze. Her touch was light, almost reverent, and where her fingers touched, a warm sensation began to spread. It wasn't heat. Not exactly. It was life. He watched as the torn fabric around his wound darkened, then peeled away, and the cut beneath began to close. Not instantly, slowly, naturally, as if she were accelerating the body's own will to heal. He couldn't breathe. When she finally pulled back, the pain was gone. The gash had vanished, replaced by smooth, unbroken skin. "What are you?" he whispered, not in fear, but awe. She met his eyes glowing softly in the dim cave and said, "Aelira." It was the first time she'd offered him her name. Lucas nodded, letting the silence settle between them like a fragile truce. Then he asked, "Do you know mine?" Aelira tilted her head slightly, like she was listening to something beneath the surface. "Lucas," she said, and the way she said it sent a chill down his spine, like she'd known it all along. He sat back, trying to process the moment, her powers, her name, the weight of her gaze. But the tension that followed wasn't fear, it was something unspoken, thicker than the mist around the waterfall, heavier than the rifle in his lap. She crawled closer to him now, slow, careful, like she didn't want to startle him. Her eyes studied his face, his scars, his expression. Then she reached up and brushed her fingers along the edge of his jaw. "You're kind," she said. Lucas didn't know what to say to that. He hadn't been called kind in years, not by anyone who meant it. "You don't know me," he replied, voice low. Aelira gave him a look that felt ancient, wise, and soft all at once. "I felt you," she said simply. Something flickered in her, a faint shimmer of light beneath her skin, as if her emotions glowed through her body. He realized she wasn't wearing armor or clothing in the way humans did. The vines and leaves wrapped around her were part of her, a living extension of who she was. She was vulnerable, and she wasn't hiding it. Lucas reached for his pack, more to break the intensity than out of need. He handed her a flask of water and an emergency ration bar. She stared at them curiously, sniffed both, then smiled. "You feed with stone and metal," he laughed genuinely. For the first time in months, she took a sip anyway, then leaned back on her hands. The faint glow from her skin cast gentle shadows against the walls. The silence between them stretched. But it wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was charged, not with danger, but possibility. Lucas studied her from the side, the way her hair fell over her shoulders, the soft curve of her legs, the markings that pulsed faintly with every heartbeat. She was a mystery, beautiful, dangerous, otherworldly. But in this moment, she was just a woman, one who had been hurt, one who trusted him enough to sit close, to touch him, to heal him. He realized something terrifying. He didn't want her to leave, not now, not ever. The jungle had gone quiet, not dead, not asleep, just watching. Moonlight poured through a split in the canopy above the cave, creating a natural spotlight over the mossy stone. The waterfall's roar had softened into a distant hush, like the world was holding its breath. Lucas sat near the edge of the cave entrance, staring at the treetops glowing faintly under the moon's silver gaze. He wasn't a man used to quiet. War didn't allow it. War didn't encourage it. Quiet made room for feelings, and feelings got soldiers killed. But beside him, the quiet wasn't dangerous. It was warm. Aelira was near, though she hadn't spoken in a while. Her presence was a soft hum in the air, like static that kissed the skin but never hurt. The vines that had once bound her now curved gently around her frame, forming a natural dress. It shimmered like silk spun from stars, blending her into the landscape, more myth than woman. But her eyes, those glowing lavender eyes, never let him forget how real she was. She stepped closer, barefoot, slow, as if not to startle him. Then she sat beside him, her body barely brushing his. He didn't move. "Couldn't you not like the others?" she said. Lucas glanced at her. "You don't know the others." "I've seen them," she replied, voice gentle but certain, eyes full of fear, hands that take without asking. "You're not empty like them." He chuckled dryly, shaking his head. "I've done things, Aelira. Things I don't speak about. Things I'd erase if I could." She turned to face him fully, her knees pulled close. "Then tell me one." He looked at her sharply. "Why?" "Because secrets build walls," she said, "and I don't want a wall between us." That silenced him. He breathed in slow, feeling the weight of memory pushing against his ribs. For a moment, he let it out. "I left someone behind once," he said, voice lower. "Not in battle. Just left. A little girl, her name was Nia. She was maybe 5. I found her after a raid, scared, hiding under a floorboard. I told her I'd come back for her." He swallowed hard. "I didn't." Aelira said nothing, just listened, her face unreadable in the moonlight. "She probably didn't last a day after I left," Lucas added, bitterness coating his words. "I thought I was protecting her by walking away, but truth is, I was protecting myself." She leaned in then, slowly, resting her hand over his. "You carry ghosts," she said softly, "but they haven't hollowed you out. That matters." Lucas stared at her fingers glowing faintly against his skin. "You talk like you've known me for years." "I feel things," she said. "Things most don't. The trap bit tried to drain my body. But when you cut me free, I felt your soul push back. You didn't just save me." Her voice dropped into something more intimate. "You touched something I'd thought was long dead." His breath caught. Her words slid under his skin like heat. "Not lust, not instinct. Something deeper. You said they wanted you to disappear," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Who are they?" She hesitated, not out of fear, but sorrow. "The ones above. They call themselves the architects. They claim they built balance between your world and ours, but all they've built is control." "And you?" he asked. "I'm what they couldn't control, a hybrid, not born from war or breeding programs. I was born from love, real love, which they now erase from our histories like it's disease." Lucas stared at her. "You're saying they're hunting you, because you feel too much." Her eyes sparkled. "Because I love too deeply, because I remember what they tried to make us forget, that we were made to connect, not conquer." A silence passed between them. Then she shifted closer. Her hand rose to his cheek, fingers trailing along the rough stubble. You've lost people. So have I. Maybe we're both tired of losing. Lucas's throat tightened. You should rest. He murmured. I don't want to sleep, she said. Not tonight. He turned to her fully. Why? Because I want to remember this moment, she whispered. The night someone looked at me and didn't see a weapon or a threat, just me. Their faces were inches apart now, the tension between them soft and simmering since the cave. Now burned quietly in the space they hadn't dared close until now. Lucas brushed her hair back, his hand trembling. And what do you see when you look at me? She smiled. Someone still deciding if he wants to be saved. Then, without asking, without hesitation, she leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was slow, searching, warm. It was everything he hadn't known he needed, and everything she hadn't dared hope for when their lips parted. Lucas rested his forehead against hers. I can't lose you, he said. Breathless. Then don't, she replied, wrapping her arms around his neck. Outside, the jungle rustled again. Something had sensed the shift. Something far from human. But inside the cave, in the moonlight, two souls held on to each other like the universe had finally given them something worth defying everything for. The cave had grown warmer, though the fire Lucas built had long since faded to ember. Outside, the jungle sang a low, primal tune, wind in the canopy, distant clicks and hums of life, moonlight casting shifting patterns on the stone. But inside, everything was still. Lucas sat beside Aelira, his hand resting near hers, neither of them speaking for what felt like forever. The kiss they shared still lingered, not just on their lips, but in the air, on their skin, between their glances. It had broken something open. A wall, a fear, maybe even a purpose. Aelira looked different now. Not just physically, though. Her glow had softened, her vines now resting loosely over her shoulders like silk. It was her expression. A deep calm, but also a fire, smoldering just behind her eyes. She stood, slowly, and walked toward the waterfall entrance, letting the moonlight touch her skin. Her hair cascaded down her back in strands of starlight, each step quiet, graceful, like she belonged to the night itself. Lucas watched her in silence. She turned to him, bare feet just brushing the mossy ground. You don't understand what it meant, she said. When you cut me free. He rose, his voice quiet. I just did what anyone should have known, she said, gently. You didn't do what others would have. You didn't treat me like a threat or a prize. You didn't take advantage of my weakness. She took a step toward him. You saw me. Lucas's heart pounded. I still do. Another step. Now just feet apart. The waterfall's mist curled around her like a veil. In my world, she continued, offering oneself isn't just about closeness. It's trust, a bond, a decision made not from lust, but from knowing, from feeling. He swallowed hard but held her gaze. And what do you feel now? She reached for him. Her fingers traced along his collarbone, brushing the edge of his shirt. Her touch wasn't rushed. It asked nothing, demanded nothing. It simply offered. I feel the way your soul quiets when I'm near, she whispered. I feel how your pain softens when you look at me. And I feel what your hands won't say, that you're starving to be held, not just touched. Lucas's breath caught. He reached up, holding her hand against his chest. You're right. He stepped closer, slowly, his body grazing hers. But you've been hurt, hunted. I don't want to make you feel like Aelira silenced him, with a fingertip to his lips. I'm not afraid of closeness, she said. I'm afraid of losing what I never thought I could have. She pulled back slightly, undoing the vines across her shoulders, letting them fall, slowly, gracefully, revealing soft, glowing skin beneath. Not out of seduction, not as an act of boldness, but as truth. I offer myself not because I owe you, she whispered, voice shaking, but because I want to. Because something inside me knows you're already mine. Lucas stared at her, breathless, stunned, filled with a hunger that was far more than physical. It was need recognition. Home. He stepped forward, cupping her face gently, and pressed his forehead to hers. Then let me be yours, he said. She exhaled like she'd been holding that breath since the day she was born. Their lips met again, not like before, this time slower, deeper. Their hands explored each other like learning a language they were always meant to speak. He traced the glowing symbols along her spine. She kissed the scars on his shoulder like they were sacred. Time became meaningless. There was no jungle dot, no war dot, no species dot, just heat, breath, connection. And the moment her body folded into his, completely, and without hesitation, the cave lit faintly with light, not from the moon, but from them. As if their bond, unspoken and final, had awakened something ancient in both of them. She gasped softly as he touched her, and he held her like she was the most fragile thing in the universe. In return, she moved against him with grace, her form melting perfectly into his, natural, intuitive, like they were made for this. Not to conquer, not to survive, to be later. As they lay tangled beneath his jacket and her vines, their bodies wrapped around one another. Aelira looked up at the ceiling of the cave, watching the faint glow dance like fireflies above. You could leave in the morning, she said. No one would blame you. Lucas traced her arm with his fingertips. I'm not going anywhere. She turned to him, eyes wide. You mean that? He nodded. For the first time in a long time, I'm exactly where I want to be. She smiled, then nestled against his chest. Outside, something howled in the jungle, distant, inhuman, a sign that their moment of peace wouldn't last forever. But inside the cave, in the arms of an alien woman who had chosen him without fear, Lucas had found something stronger than safety. He had found belonging. Morning crept into the jungle with golden fingers, filtering through the mist like a soft revelation. The waterfall glistened brighter than before, its roar gentler, like it too had surrendered to the quiet aftermath of the night. Lucas stirred, before the sun fully rose, his senses trained to wake before danger did. But this morning, for the first time in what felt like years, his instincts didn't shout warnings, they whispered warmth. Aelira lay curled beside him, her head tucked into the crook of his arm, her breathing slow and peaceful. Her skin still carried that faint glow, though now it pulsed in rhythm with his own heartbeat, as if their bodies had aligned without words. He studied her in silence, the soft slope of her back, the way the vines that once formed a protective cage now wrapped around them both like a second skin. Something in him, the soldier, the skeptic, the loner, had surrendered, not out of weakness, out of recognition. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, her eyes fluttered open. "You stayed," she whispered. "I told you I would." She touched his chest, her fingers resting over his heart. "With the war out there, it doesn't pause for love." "I know," he replied, "but love doesn't ask for permission either." Aelira sat up slowly, her gaze shifting to the jungle outside. The serenity in her features was giving way. "To worry they will come. The architects, they'll know I bonded to you. They don't forgive that kind of choice." Lucas stood, pulling on his jacket, mind already calculating routes, escape plans, fallback zones. "Then we move. We disappear. They stay ahead of them." She looked at him sadly. "You'd give up everything." "I've already given it," he said. "Last night wasn't just comfort. It was the first time I felt anything that made sense. I won't go back to following orders written by men who treat people like you as targets." Aelira rose, approaching him. "I won't let you die for me." "I'm not dying for you," Lucas said. "I'm living because of you." For a moment she just stared at him. Then something in her eyes shifted resolve, deep and bright. "There's a sanctuary," she said finally. "A place not even the architect's breach. My mother spoke of it before she was taken. It's in the northern ridge, hidden by ancient growth and guarded by the earth itself. Then that's where we go. But it's a journey," she warned. "Days on foot, dangerous terrain, and you'll be hunted every step of the way by both humans and aliens. You'll be a traitor to your command." Lucas shrugged. Wasn't much of a soldier to begin with. She laughed quietly, and it was the most beautiful sound he'd heard in years. He packed light, just weapons, water, rations. She needed none of it. Her bond with the earth fed her. The jungle had begun to respond to her presence too, parting slightly as they stepped into it together. Vines curling softly, birds watching silently dot as they moved. Lucas noticed something strange. The jungle liked her. Trees bent toward her path. Roots shifted gently beneath her feet. He wondered how much of this world had once belonged to her kind before humans ever touched it. 2 days passed. They slept under stars, whispering stories to one another, him about Earth's forgotten cities, her about star gardens and oceans that glowed in the dark. At night, they held each other not just for warmth, but to silence the loneliness neither of them had spoken aloud. On the third day, as they neared a cliff's edge, Lucas paused. A drone. It hovered in the distance, silent, scanning. Then it turned. Toward them, red lights pulsing. Aelira stepped forward, her body rising taller, eyes glowing bright. "Don't move." Lucas obeyed. She raised her hands, and from the earth something ancient stirred. Vines missed light. The drone flickered, twisted in midair, and then collapsed in a burst of sparks. Lucas blinked. "How did you?" "They made me to obey," she said, voice full of fire. "But I was born to resist." They reached the sanctuary on the fourth night, hidden behind a thicket of ancient trees that pulsed with bioluminescence. Inside, there were no structures, no walls, just living trees, warm caves, pools of light that hummed with peace. For the first time, Lucas took a deep breath and didn't feel the need to hold it. Aelira walked barefoot into the center of the grove, and the earth itself responded, flowers blooming at her feet, vines spiraling upward like they were greeting an old friend. Lucas followed her, feeling the burden he'd carried for years begin to peel away. She turned to him. "This is home, if you want it." He stepped into her arms, resting his forehead against hers. "I don't want it," he said. "I choose it." And just like that, the war, the hunger, the orders, the pain, all faded into the background. Because sometimes, the universe doesn't end in fire. Sometimes it ends in a kiss, a promise, and a new beginning. Together.